Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with London-born, Brooklyn-based jazz pianist, bassist, and composer Howard Britz. He created a new album during the pandemic called Comfort and Joy. It was out digitally in 2021 and is now just out on CD in 2022. It's full of a music that is melodic, open-hearted, emotional, and feel-good. Originally from London, he played trumpet, then saxophone in high school, and began to play professionally until a jaw injury forced him to give up wind instruments. He came to America back in 1995 on scholarship to the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and he has thrived ever since. Enjoy the story.
Thanks for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, not at all. No, it's a pleasure.
Let's talk about your latest 2022 CD, something that the planet sorely needs, which is Comfort and Joy. And,
that's exactly it, yeah.
Yeah, well, and with that being the idea, talk to me a little bit about the timing of this with COVID, things slowing down, the opportunity to promote and get out and perform live. What does it mean for this to come out right now?
Well, I mean, the actual CD came out in 2021, just at I think in August, and then as a digital release, and it's only come out as a CD, like a physical CD, last month. And the whole thing was with the title was during COVID when things were really locked down, and I'm in New York, so you know we definitely had a pretty bad situation at a certain point. And no one was playing, no gigs, no nothing, obviously, you know. And I just sat down and decided to write a set of tunes, you know, to keep myself in the game and to keep my mind active. And I just decided to some pre-improvise some music on the piano and just see where it took me. You know, I came up with these melodies that had no structure at the time, nothing, just melodies that I liked. And then I sort of reverse engineered it, if you will, to find out what the music was about. And, you know, I discovered that these songs had these particular characters that I recognized as I put the harmony and, you know, decided what the groove was and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, the thing with Comfort and Joy was that's what it was giving me, you know, because I couldn't play music with other people. None of us could. And, you know, we were so kind of separated. This music put me in touch with those feelings. And, you know, that's where I started off. And I realized that, you know, the first track, I don't know if you've played that, but To Friendship, that was such a sustaining thing for me, you know, is to think about friends that I was able to talk to and interact with. And anyway, that's where it all started from, you know.
I'm curious, over this time of lockdown, quarantine, you know, you made this album, but also we had a lot of time for self-reflection. What did you learn about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before that's going to make you stronger as we all reemerge and you promote this new album?
Well, I would say one thing that has always carried me through, but even more so when everything dropped away, was just that I love music. I love playing music. I love thinking about music. And, you know, that might sound kind of banal and sort of obvious, but, you know, as a musician, I mean, I've made my living as a musician in some form or other since, you know, roughly 1985. You know, it's been a long time. You know, it's a job. You have to do it as a job, and not always all parts of that job are so great. You know, there's a lot of work to it and whatever. But when it comes right down to it, it's such a privilege to be able to play music and be creative. You know, I think that meant that I was able to, you know, maintain a positive mental state and feel connected to the world through the music, you know? And that was just for me. And then when I had the pleasure of being able to realize it with other musicians and record it, that's just so fantastic, you know, to bring other people in and get their input and see how your ideas translate through other people's imaginations. You know, it's just a wonderful process.
Let's go back to the beginnings and how the seeds were planted in you in London. Talk to me about your childhood and how not only music, but more specifically, jazz really became something you were interested in.
Well, I mean, that's a funny thing, really, because when I was growing up in London, I don't remember hearing any jazz at all. I mean, I'm sure it was going on. I'm sure it was. But for me, like just a kid, I lived in Southgate in North London. I didn't hear anything. I mean, and the music on the radio was frankly awful at the time. People were going about like, oh, you must have heard the Beatles, it must have been blah, blah, blah. Not really, not that much. By the time I'm growing up, you know, the Beatles were sort of in the past, and, you know, we're talking about sort of bubblegum, pop, and whatever. So I'm like, you know, I didn't really have music that I was passionate about for quite a while. And then, you know, I heard a few records, just by chance. I think my parents had like a Glenn Miller record or something, and I was like, what is that? What is that? You know, but very luckily, I happened to live opposite, and one of my good friends at the time was this guy, Stephen Sidwell, who's now a very, very well-known trumpet player and MD in England, very, very, you know, very successful. But anyway, his dad was a professional musician doing shows like West End, like the equivalent of Broadway and all that. And he got together a big band just because, you know, he was passionate about it. So all of us musicians, you know, kids that were interested in music, playing at school, we went along and joined this band. It was called Young Jazz. And we played, you know, Duke Ellington and Count Basie arrangements. And it was like a bolt from the heavens, you know. It was like, whoa, this music exists, you know. And it just completely turned me on. And I guess I would have to say that, you know, it stems from that, because then, you know, I was able to listen to Duke Ellington records and, you know, Clark Terry. I was a trumpet player then. I was, you know, in school, I was playing trumpet because I played a few instruments in my time before settling on piano and bass. And anyway, that was it. That was the beginning, you know, because, and of course, there's no streaming. There's no, like, YouTube or anything like that. So you couldn't just look up music. You know, it was really hard to find if you weren't in that environment. That opportunity just opened up a world to me that I can't imagine how else I would have got into.
Well, in the mid-'90s, you make your way to America. You go to the Berklee College of Music and then New England after that. But I'm curious, was it always a dream of yours to get to America to study jazz here?
Well, you know, once I got serious about it, yeah. I mean, I had a bit of a bumpy start because in the 80s, I was a saxophone player. I got serious on saxophone, and then I had a problem. I had what's called a TMJ. Basically, my jaw fell apart. I had to give up playing wind instruments. So I'm knocking around in the sort of early 80s, and I just picked up the bass, double bass. Well, actually, initially electric bass, and then I grabbed hold of that and, you know, started working quite soon, amazingly enough, because I wasn't very good. And but anyway, by 1985, I was a professional, you know, musician playing bass, double bass, and from then till I left for America, which is 91. Yeah, I mean, you know, America was and is the mecca for jazz. I mean, it just is. You know, all the records that you listen to, most of your heroes, they are American, and you know that the music essentially, you know, it comes from America. I mean, there's great exponents all over the world, but the music is American music. It comes from here. And, you know, just as I progressed in my career in London, I've started to realize, you know, I don't think I can get to being the musician I want to be without going to America. So, you know, 91, I got a scholarship to go to Berklee, and I took the opportunity as a bass player. So, you know, this is what I've done for the majority of my career, is play the bass. The piano is a more recent thing. Berklee was fantastic. Boston was fantastic. Amazing musicians, fantastic musicians, and just the culture was so enlivening. You know, coming from London, it's, you know, the weather's terrible a lot of times, and the winters are dark and gloomy. And I get to Boston, and even though it's cold as hell, it's like sunny and the sky's like miles high. It just kind of opened everything up somehow, you know?
Absolutely. What is it that you like the best about being a musician? You're obviously versatile. You're a survivor. You've had to deal with, you know, the TMJ and different things and pick up different instruments. But what do you like the best about this process of being a professional musician?
Well, it's always, to me, I mean, as not only a musician but a composer. You know, this is my 6th album as a leader. The through line is always trying to find a voice. It's trying to find my musical voice, and I've tried that in many ways. You know, through composition, through my playing, through having people, you know, seeing the people that I play with and what I see in them, and ultimately, you know, when I made a serious commitment to piano, it was in the realization that I needed an instrument that could basically orchestrate the whole thing. And that's why I had to get into it. So I think overall the thing I love the most is just the constant learning, is that, you know, that you never feel like you're done. You never feel like, well, I know how to do this job, so I guess I'm done. You just get up every day, and especially as a pianist, you know, not having the background of started when I was 5 years old, which is, you know, often how you talk to people. Oh yeah, I did have my lessons. No, I didn't really start getting seriously into the piano until I was, you know, well into my career as a bass player. So I'm constantly thinking like, oh, I have to do this, in order that I can express myself with the freedom and the passion that I want. And so it's all just an evolution. It's like, you know, you go down that path. You try and put out a statement that's like, you know, the best you can do at the time, and hopefully speaks to people. And then you move on, and, you know, you just keep trying to learn and grow and listen to other people and keep being inspired, you know?
Let's say prior to you coming to America on scholarship, getting ready to embark on your career, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into your younger version of yourself around the time you were getting ready to come to America. And based on the wisdom that you've gained over all these years and the experience, and you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Relax. Don't be so hard on yourself. Try and enjoy the ride, because it's all just experience. It's all a journey. There's no kind of nirvana. There's no like, I'm there, I made it, I'm done. It's all, you know. I think as a younger musician, when I came to America, I thought I had to achieve something really quickly and prove something, and I feel like I was very aggressive, not in a way where I was you know, physically aggressive or anything like, but just wanting more all the time, more. What can I do? It gave me a lot of energy, but it also meant I think I often missed out on enjoying things because I was thinking, what's next? And, you know, so I would just say, relax to that.
Right on.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say you have a jazz DeLorean and you can go back in time and see any musician anywhere. Who do you want to see live?
Oh, God. All right. Well, obviously Miles. I mean, I should have seen Miles because he was alive when I was, you know, around, but I never did. So, yeah, I got to see Miles. I guess any musician would say that. Can I go back anytime? Like,
anytime.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, I guess I've got to go and see Coltrane. I got to see Coltrane. God, I'd love to hang out at Minton's and see those jam sessions with Charlie Parker and Bud Powell, all that stuff. I mean, the legendary sort of things, you know, you hear about. I'd love to have seen Oscar Peterson in his prime. I mean, I did see Oscar Peterson. There was a festival that I played at that he was headlining, but by that time he had a stroke and his left arm wasn't really functioning like it did. So, you know, love to have seen Oscar with the Ray Brown and Ed Thigpen trio, the classic trio. God, Charlie Mingus. You know, I mean, all of those guys, all of those guys. I think ultimately, if I had to pick one, maybe I'd pick Miles Davis's group with Herbie, Wayne, and Tony Williams and Ron Carter. If I had to pick one, you know, I can, because I mean that, you know, like there was one album. I don't know. Do you know the album My Funny Valentine?
Oh yeah,
right. That Miles Davis album.
Yep, absolutely.
I would say for the first 10 years of me playing the double bass, I felt like if you could play like Ron Carter played on that, that was all you needed to do. Like, you know, and I came up, you know, Ray Brown was one of my first influences and still is to this day as a bass player. But you know, when I heard Ron on that and that band and the looseness, but the inventiveness and everybody working together, I was like, that's perfect music. That music is just, it's got everything. And, you know, so I think if I could see that band, I don't know where they recorded that. Was it Carnegie Hall or something? Yeah, those two albums, you know, My Funny Valentine and Four and More, they recorded both of those. I think there was the same engagement, maybe 2 nights or something. But anyhow, yeah, if I had to pick one, I think it would be that one.
Beautiful. So, you know, speaking of live performance, we've been away from it largely for about 2 years now. When we do get back, when you get to perform and promote your new album, what do you hope we all realize about the power of live music when we get back together?
There's something innately special about musicians making music in front of you at that moment. And it's a really hard sell these days because music is so ubiquitous. It's so easy. You just dial it up wherever you are. And, you know, you hear the best music in the world. It's great. But when you go and you see, you know, the human beings, like we're out there playing that music, that's happening for the first time. You know, it's unique. And especially because it's jazz, you know, we don't know what we're going to play. When you think of it, it's an amazing ability that we have as humans to do that. You know, I don't even know how it works, honestly. You know, like when you improvise, I don't really know how that works. It just does. You know how to play your instrument, you understand harmony, you know, you've got a sense of rhythm. But when you flick that switch and you kind of go for it, that's one of the great mysteries of life, you know. So I think that hopefully it communicates to audiences, you know, if you can open your ears, if you can just let down your barriers a little bit, you're going to hear a kind of communication that is very, very special.
Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of who you are. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? If you ask that with a different tone of voice, I could answer it differently.
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I think I'm a very average chap who just happens to be very passionate about making music, and for some strange reason, there is nothing else that I particularly want to do with my life. So it is a very peculiar thing. It cannot be explained by logic because it's a stupid way to try and make a living. So I think I'm just a not a special person, but just a hardworking person who tries to make music and bring something to the world, that communicate my little 10 cents worth and maybe have people understand something. It's in the music, honestly. I mean, that, when you listen to the music, that's who I am. I mean, there's a lot more. Obviously, I've got a personal life and a family and whatever, but that's my life, is when you listen to the music. That's what I've learned. That's what I've understood about life. So, not to get too kind of purple about it, but that's it.
I dig it. Man,
yeah.
Howard, thank you. Thank you for opening up. Good luck with the new album and the return to the stage. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'll listen out for your show.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in London, Boston, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Howard for his time, energy, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.